It hit me like a physical blow. The room tilting, my hand shaking so violently the teacup rattled a frantic rhythm against the saucer. Then the taste. Got that taste. Faintly metallic, bitter, coating my tongue. Wrong. Utterly wrong. This wasn't just dizziness. This wasn't age catching up to me. This was poison. My blood ran cold with a certainty that squeezed the air from my lungs. Someone was doing this to me. Deliberately. Fully. Someone close. And instantly her smiling face flashed in my mind. My son Mark's wife, Chloe. She wanted me gone. The thought echoed sharp and terrifying. She wanted me dead. But even as that horror washed over me, a darker resolve began to form. She thought she was clever, hiding her malice behind sweet tea and concern. She had no idea. Faking my death. That was just the beginning of the agony I would make her endure. Before Chloe slithered into our lives, my world was painted in softer colors. Quiet, yes, especially after my beloved husband Tom passed 5 years earlier, leaving the house feeling a little too big, a little too silent. But it was a comforting silence, filled with the scent of old books from my favorite armchair and the sight of sunlight warming the worn kitchen floor. My garden was my true haven, a riot of roses and lavender I'd tended for years. Kept my hands busy and my heart grounded. I wasn't adrift. I had friends, my book club, my sister Carol just a phone call away. And I had Mark. My wonderful son. He had his father's kindness, maybe a touch of his trusting nature too, which sometimes worried me. He was building a good life, working hard in finance, and his happiness was my anchor. We were close, weekly calls, Sunday dinners that filled the house with warmth again. Life felt settled, a gentle rhythm I cherished. My biggest dream was simple. To see Mark happy, maybe eventually bounce grandchildren on my knee, share my love for the garden with them. Everything felt stable, secure in my small corner of the world. Then Mark met Chloe. He called one night, practically vibrating with excitement. "Mom, I met someone," he'd gushed. "She's incredible. Smart, gorgeous, funny. You'll absolutely adore her." He sounded incandescently happy, happier than I'd heard him in ages. Naturally, my heart soared for him. Meeting Chloe, however, brought a flicker of something else. She was undeniably polished, perfectly put together, with a dazzling smile that seemed surgically attached. She lavished praise on Mark, on my home, my garden, me. Felt excessive. Like a performance. Her eagerness felt almost desperate, but Mark was utterly captivated, looking at her as if she'd single-handedly arranged the stars. I chided myself for the tiny seed of doubt. Was I just being an overprotective mother, reluctant to share my son? I desperately wanted to embrace her for Mark's sake. So I pushed my hesitation aside and welcomed her. Their romance was a blur. Engaged in 6 months, married within a year. At their beautiful wedding, I raised my glass, offering a heartfelt toast to their future, silencing the small, persistent voice inside that whispered caution. I opened my home and my heart to her, never suspecting I was inviting a viper across the threshold. After the wedding vows faded, Chloe's presence became almost constant. Mark's long hours meant she often appeared at my door, suggesting she was just keeping me company. But her company soon felt like careful observation. Odd little things started happening, like tiny cracks appearing in the facade of our new family dynamic. My favorite antique teacup, a precious gift from Tom, somehow slipped from her hands, shattering on the tile. "Oh, clumsy me," she'd cried, her eyes wide with a sympathy that didn't quite ring true. A beautiful silk scarf Carol had given me disappeared, only to reappear weeks later, slightly damaged, after Chloe claimed she'd borrowed it and simply forgot. Then came the insidious comments, always wrapped in a veneer of concern. "Eleanor, darling, are you absolutely sure you should be using that stepladder? Why not let Mark move those hanging plants down for you?" Or after tasting my cooking, she'd say, "This is lovely, but maybe just a touch less salt, dear? For your health, you know." Each remark chipped away, designed to paint me as fragile, increasingly dependent. She began rearranging my kitchen, my sanctuary, moving things without asking. "Just trying to make things easier for you," she'd chirp brightly. It felt less like help and more like a slow, deliberate erasure of my presence in my own home. The first real sickness hit about 3 months in. Chloe had insisted on making me dinner at my place. A supposed apology after I'd gently requested she leave my cupboards alone. The pasta was rich, admittedly tasty. But that night vicious cramps seized me, followed by debilitating nausea that clung to me for 2 miserable days. I brushed it off as a stomach bug. Chloe fluttered around, dripping sympathy, bringing broth, earning Mark's praise for her attentiveness. A flicker of suspicion ignited within me, but I quickly smothered it with guilt. It had to be a coincidence. Yet a small cold knot remained, a premonition I couldn't quite shake. That was the opening act, the first hint of the poison she was seeding in my life. The coincidences began to form a disturbing pattern. Not long after the pasta incident, Chloe arrived bearing her famous lemon scones. Bright, sunny, delicious. Within an hour of eating one, a blinding headache struck, coupled with a disorienting wave of dizziness. Again it faded after about a day. Again Chloe was a mask of worried perfection. Then she introduced the tea. A special herbal blend she swore by, bringing it over in a pretty thermos she always carried. "It gives you such wonderful energy, Eleanor," she insisted, pouring me a cup with a flourish. "You've seemed so tired lately." And the terrible truth was I was tired. Exhausted. A profound weariness had settled deep in my bones, a constant fog clouding my thoughts. I found myself fumbling for words, feeling unsteady, off balance. These episodes, this draining fatigue, the headaches, the dizziness, they always seemed to follow her visits, always after consuming something she had brought. Especially the tea. It became her signature offering. She'd appear, beaming, thermos ready. "Brewed you a fresh pot, darling." And I, trapped between suspicion and the desperate desire not to alienate Mark, would drink it. Each time, that almost imperceptible metallic aftertaste seemed sharper, lingering just beneath the herbs before fading. My doctors were baffled. Dr. Adams, my GP for 20 years, ran tests. I saw a specialist. Blood work, scans. Nothing definitive. "Maybe it's stress, Eleanor," Dr. Adams suggested gently. "Grief affects people differently." Or perhaps, he added, "it's just part of getting older." Older. The word felt like a slap, a dismissal of the very real, very frightening sensations overwhelming my body. This wasn't just aging. This felt like an invasion. Naturally, Chloe was there when I relayed the inconclusive results to Mark. Her brow furrowed in that perfectly practiced expression of concern. "Oh, Eleanor, I hate hearing this. You seem so fragile sometimes. Mark, honey, maybe we should really think about getting your mom some proper help." Or, she added, glancing at me with wide, earnest eyes, "those lovely assisted living places nearby? Just so we have peace of mind knowing she's safe." My blood turned to ice. Assisted living? She wasn't just concerned, she was actively trying to label me as incapable, paving the way to push me out. When I tried, cautiously, to voice my growing fear to Mark, connecting the timing of my illnesses to Chloe's offerings, he reacted with defensive anger. "Mom, that's absolutely ridiculous," he'd said, his voice sharp with disbelief. "Chloe loves you. She worries constantly. How could you even suggest such a monstrous thing? She's only trying to care for you." His hurt and offense were palpable, carving a painful distance between us. He saw a devoted wife. I saw a predator hiding in plain sight. I felt utterly isolated, my body failing me, my son blinded, and the horrifying suspicion hardening into a chilling certainty. The situation was escalating rapidly, and I felt terrifyingly alone, caught in her web. The slow decline abruptly transformed into a near-fatal plunge. It was a Tuesday. Chloe had dropped by, unannounced as usual, thermos in hand. Her special tea. I'd felt relatively clear-headed that morning, but I forced myself to drink the cup she poured, hiding my revulsion behind a strained smile. An hour later, needing to run an errand, I got into my car. The afternoon sun was bright, almost blinding. As I pulled onto Maple Street, the world suddenly, violently tilted. My vision tunneled, darkness encroaching from the edges. A terrifying numbness crept into my hands gripping the wheel. Nausea surged, thick and choking, coupled with a dizziness so intense I thought I'd vomit. Instinct took over. I slammed the brakes, tires screeching. The car behind me laid on its horn as I swerved wildly, narrowly missing a parked car before lurching to a stop against the curb. My head thudded against the headrest, black spots dancing in my vision. For a few terrifying seconds I blacked out. When awareness returned, my heart was a frantic hammer against my ribs, cold sweat pasting my hair to my temples. I had almost caused a horrific crash. She had almost killed me. Shaking violently, I somehow managed to creep the car back home, each familiar block feeling like a mile. That metallic taste, it was stronger this time, a vile coating in my mouth. It wasn't just tea anymore. It was antifreeze. It was poison. The vague fear coalesced into stark, icy terror. This wasn't about making me seem frail or manipulating me into a care home. This was cold-blooded, calculated attempted murder, executed with sickening patience. The motive screamed silently in my mind. Money. My comfortable home, Tom's carefully managed savings, Mark's inheritance. With me out of the picture, Mark would inherit everything. And Chloe, his loving, concerned wife, would gain control. Her inquiries about my finances became less veiled. "Eleanor, have you thought about updating your will recently?" She'd ask casually, sipping her own undoubtedly safe tea. "It's just so vital to have everything in order." Or Mark mentioned the housing market is booming. "This lovely house must be worth a pretty penny now." Always presented as pragmatic chatter, but the greedy undertone was unmistakable, laced with impatience. Then the discovery that confirmed my darkest fears and solidified my resolve. Mark and Chloe stayed in the guest room one weekend. After they left, I went in to strip the bed. Chloe's tablet lay forgotten on the nightstand. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach, but I had to know. My fingers trembled as I powered it on. She hadn't logged out. I tapped the browser icon. The search history loaded. My breath caught in my throat. Symptoms of chronic ethylene glycol poisoning. How to induce gradual heart failure. Undetectable toxins mimicking illness. Lethal dose of antifreeze. Inheritance procedures UK. Spousal control over inherited assets. Row after row of chilling searches, morbidly interspersed with browsing for luxury cruises and designer shoes. The sheer, cold calculation of it stole my breath. She wasn't just cruel. She was methodical, researching her crime like a project. Her mask was slipping more frequently too. When Mark wasn't present, the saccharine sweetness would drop, revealing glimpses of sharp impatience, a chilling emptiness in her eyes that made my skin crawl. I saw her then, truly saw her. Confronting her directly would be futile. She'd deny, manipulate, twist Mark further against me. I needed undeniable proof. And I needed a strategy for survival. A way to turn the tables so completely she could never recover. The weight of it all felt crushing, but the sheer injustice fueled a new, cold fire within me. I couldn't fight this alone. I needed an ally, someone unshakable, someone who would believe the unbelievable. My thoughts flew to Carol, Tom's sister. A retired ER nurse, Carol was sharp, pragmatic, and fiercely loyal. She lived 2 towns away, but distance meant nothing now. My voice shook when I called her, pleading to see her urgently, saying it was something too serious for the phone. In the safety of Carol's living room, the story poured out of me. The escalating illnesses, the metallic taste, Chloe's insidious comments, Mark's defensive blindness, the near-fatal car incident, and finally the horrifying tablet search history. Carol listened, her expression shifting from deep concern to sharp skepticism, and then as the pieces clicked into place to stark horror. When I finally fell silent, exhausted and trembling, she reached out, her grip firm on my hand. "Oh, Eleanor," she breathed, her voice tight with anger. "That poisonous little viper." Hearing Carol's conviction, her immediate belief, was like finding solid ground after drowning. Tears of sheer relief streamed down my face. "We need proof, Ellie," Carol stated, her nurse's practicality kicking in. Hard, undeniable proof. Proof that will shatter Mark's illusions and satisfy the police. We talked for hours, fueled by coffee and righteous anger. The plan that emerged was terrifyingly bold, fraught with risk, but it felt like the only path forward. First, I had to embrace the role Chloe had cast for me. I began to visibly fail. I canceled lunches with friends, citing overwhelming fatigue. I let Mark find me looking pale and unsteady when he visited, murmuring about dizziness and confusion. Chloe's performance of concern intensified, but behind her worried eyes, I saw a flicker of triumphant anticipation. Carol, meanwhile, activated her network. She found a highly recommended private investigator, discreet and experienced. Within days, microscopic cameras were strategically placed in my kitchen, focused on the counter where Chloe always prepared her deadly tea, and another hidden in the living room. The feeds went directly to a secure online storage accessible only to Carol and me. The next step was the riskiest: collecting physical evidence. Each time Chloe offered me tea or food, I'd make a show of taking a sip or a small bite, then later, when alone, carefully transfer a sample into sterile vials Carol had supplied, meticulously labeling each with the date and time. Carol handled the logistics, ensuring the samples reached a reputable private toxicology lab via a trusted courier, maintaining a strict chain of custody. The waiting was agony. Every interaction with Chloe felt like dancing with death. Her smiles seemed predatory, her touch felt like ice. Then Carol called, her voice low and grim. "Got the results, Ellie. And the latest video footage." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Tell me," I whispered. "It's positive," Carol confirmed, her voice hardening. "Significant traces of ethylene glycol, antifreeze, in the last 3 tea samples you sent. Consistent low-level dosing. Enough to cause every symptom you described, building up over time. And the video. Ellie, you need to see this." She sent the encrypted file. My hands shook as I opened it. There she was, Chloe, humming softly in my sunlit kitchen. A quick glance over her shoulder, then she pulled a small, unlabeled dropper bottle from her expensive handbag. Carefully, deliberately, she squeezed several clear drops into the teacup she held. My teacup. Seeing her casual malice, her absolute confidence in her own impunity, extinguished any lingering hesitation. A simple arrest wasn't enough. She needed to understand the depth of her cruelty. She needed to feel a fraction of the fear and pain she had inflicted. That's when the final chilling piece of the strategy locked into place. I looked across the table at Carol, my voice gaining a strange, cold steadiness. "We have to go further, Carol. I need to disappear. I need her to believe she succeeded. Faking my own death." The words hung in the air, terrifying but necessary. It was the only way to guarantee my safety, ensure her conviction, and deliver the most devastating public downfall imaginable. The following weeks unfolded like a covert operation. Carol was my steadfast general, managing details with quiet competence. We brought my longtime family lawyer, Mr. Henderson, into the fold. A reserved man who had deeply respected Tom, he was initially aghast but quickly recognized the extreme circumstances. He meticulously prepared legal documentation, ensuring the evidence was airtight. Carol also persuaded Dr. Ramirez, a retired colleague deeply indebted to her, to play a crucial role. He reluctantly agreed to sign a death certificate, citing plausible complications from a fictitious, rapidly progressing neurological disorder, its supposed symptoms mirroring the effects of the poison. I committed fully to my role, exaggerating my decline. I became weaker, more confused, allowing Chloe to help with bills and paperwork, strategically letting her glimpse account statements and insurance details, fanning the flames of her greed. Seeing Mark's raw worry and guilt during his frequent visits tore at my heart. Deceiving my own son felt like a betrayal, but I clung to the knowledge that this was the only path to free him from her toxic influence. Then the designated morning arrived. Carol executed her part perfectly, finding me unresponsive in bed. Her call to Mark was filled with convincing hysteria. Dr. Ramirez arrived, performed a somber examination, and pronounced me deceased. A closed casket funeral was arranged swiftly, explained by the distressing speed of the illness. Under the cover of darkness, Carol smuggled me to her home, installing me in her spare room while the world mourned Eleanor Carmichael. Watching the live stream of my own funeral was profoundly surreal. Mark's eulogy, choked with genuine grief, broke my heart anew. Beside him stood Chloe, the grieving widow incarnate in chic black, dabbing flawless eyes with a handkerchief. But I saw it. that fleeting, almost imperceptible smirk of satisfaction when condolences were offered, praising her devoted care. 1 week later, the stage was set. Mr. Henderson convened a gathering at my house, ostensibly for Mark to handle urgent paperwork and for close relations to offer support. Carol ensured Chloe's attendance, mentioning the need to discuss the will. Around 20 people milled in my living room, the air thick with hushed sympathy. Chloe sat beside Mark, a paragon of sorrow, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat, commanding silence. Before we proceed with the estate matters, he announced, his voice resonating with gravity, Eleanor left very specific instructions, a final message she insisted be shared. He nodded towards Carol, who dimmed the lights and switched on the large television. A flicker of confusion crossed Chloe's face, quickly masked. Then my kitchen appeared on screen. Crystal clear video. The room held its breath as they watched Chloe, humming nonchalantly, check the hallway before producing the small dropper bottle and carefully dosing the teacup. My teacup. Audible gasps filled the room. Mark stared, transfixed, his face draining of color as disbelief morphed into horrified comprehension. Chloe froze, her perfect composure shattering like cheap glass. Her eyes darted frantically, seeking escape where there was none. The video clip ended, plunging the room into stunned, absolute silence, broken only by Chloe's sharp, panicked breaths. Mr. Henderson's voice sliced through the tension, cold as steel. That footage, coupled with certified laboratory reports confirming lethal doses of ethylene glycol in tea samples provided to Eleanor by Chloe Carmichael, has been submitted to the police department. And then, as planned, the door to the study swung open. I stepped out. I walked slowly, deliberately into the stunned silence, my gaze fixed solely on Chloe. The collective gasp was like a physical force in the room. Someone shrieked. Mark shot to his feet, his face a maelstrom of shock, disbelief, and overwhelming, impossible relief. He whispered, tears flooding his eyes. Chloe's reaction was primal. A strangled, animal sound tore from her throat. Her face twisted, collapsing from shock into raw terror, then contorting into pure venomous rage. "You can't be here," she screamed, her voice cracking, a trembling finger stabbing the air towards me. "You're dead." "Not quite, Chloe," I replied, my voice calm, amplified by the shocked stillness. "Just dead to you." The final vestiges of her control evaporated. She lunged, not at me but blindly towards the exit. Carol and Mr. Henderson moved swiftly, blocking her path. At that exact moment, the wail of approaching sirens filled the air. 2 uniformed officers stepped into the room, already briefed. They moved towards Chloe, reciting her rights as she began to babble incoherent denials. She didn't resist as the handcuffs clicked shut. She simply dissolved into hysterical sobs. The true revenge wasn't just her arrest. It was the complete public demolition of her fabricated identity, the brutal exposure in front of everyone, especially my son. Her carefully constructed world crumbled into dust around her. Her agony, her humiliation, her utter ruin. That was just the start of her well-deserved pain. The fallout was intense, raw, but ultimately necessary. Chloe's fate was sealed. The evidence, video, lab reports, testimony from me, Carol, and even a horrified Mark, was insurmountable. Her attempts to plead insanity or claim coercion were futile. Facing a lengthy trial she couldn't win, she ultimately accepted a plea bargain for attempted murder and poisoning. She resides in prison now, stripped bare of her lies, her freedom, her future. Mark was shattered. He grappled with the trauma of my death, the horror of Chloe's betrayal, and the shock of my elaborate counter-deception. Our path to reconciliation was paved with difficult conversations, therapy sessions, tears, and anger. He felt wounded by both of us for different reasons, but slowly, painstakingly we rebuilt. He saw the irrefutable proof, finally understood the mortal danger I had faced, and the deep well of his love for me ultimately cleansed the wounds. Our bond is altered, marked by the ordeal, but perhaps deeper now, forged in the fires of truth. I couldn't stay in that house. The memories were tainted, the shadows too long. I sold it and found a bright, airy apartment overlooking a park closer to Carol. My small balcony garden thrives. Lavender for peace, sturdy perennials for resilience. I reconnected with my life, my friends, my quiet routines. Life feels calmer now, genuinely peaceful. That chapter left indelible scars. I trust less easily, scrutinize smiles more carefully. The memory of that cold malice hiding behind affection is a chilling reminder of the darkness people can conceal. But orchestrating my own death, as extreme as it sounds, was an act of profound self-preservation. It wrested back the control Chloe tried to steal. It ensured justice was not just done but seen to be done in the most impactful way possible. There's a stark, quiet satisfaction in knowing she faces the consequences of her cruelty every single day, that her intricate plan imploded, bringing her nothing but disgrace and despair. It wasn't just about vengeance. It was about survival. It was about reclaiming my narrative, my future. I endured. I'm still here. And she's paying the price. That victory, quiet and absolute, is the final word.